Our interview this morning is with Robert L. Preuninger. Robert was born in Bowie, Texas in November of 1925. He served in the United States Army during the Second World War. His highest rank attained was sergeant. This interview is conducted at Burleson, Texas on Friday, June the 8th, year 2012. My name is Dale Dexheimer. I'm not related to Robert in any way. Also in the room we have Milton Gibson and Gary Burton, who are videographers. And as an observer we have Earl Kirkpatrick. This interview is conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress and also for Operation Remember, City of Burleson, Texas. Robert, with that little introduction, we're going to let you tell us your story of when you were in the Army, sir.
I'll start. I was raised on a farm in Montague County, and before I went in, my dad took me off to the side, and he said, now for 18 years, I raised you how you're supposed to live and what you're supposed to do. Now it's up to you to do what I taught you to do. And I did. When I went over there, I lived so much different than the other guys in, when I take basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky. This guy come to walk in front of me and he said, you won't be in here 6 months, you're gonna be drinking, gambling, smoking, run around with any old gal and have something to do with you. I said, I'm raised better than that. So he went on, and I couldn't go off a base because them guys went to the bars, and that was not my thing. So I stayed on base, and then when we got through basic training and left on a ship going overseas, he walked in front of me and I said, I haven't started what you said I would do. He said, you will when you get overseas. I said, you know, I've seen guys that come from overseas that their nerves went all to pieces. You don't know what you're going to do when you get in combat because your nerves. So I was the first battle that I was in after I got overseas. We landed in Le Havre, France. There was no docks there for us to land on. That was the longest gangplank I ever seen in my life. The ship pulled along shore, and that gangplank went all the way to the land, and we had to walk down it. Then we went to a town in Belgium, and I can't think of the name of the town. Then we went from there to St. Vith, Belgium, in the Battle of the Bulge. Snow was over knee deep. We was in it 24 hours a day. Nothing to eat because it was all our food was froze. It's 30 below zero. They said, now I can't prove that. And the water was froze, so while we was up there, we had to do without food and water. We had a candy bar we could eat once in a while, and it was froze. You stick it in your mouth, do like that, and break it off so you let it dissolve in your mouth. Then we left there, and we went to Brussels, Welkenrad, Belgium. And then that was on February the 2nd, we went there. Then for 3 weeks, the snow was melting, and we had to work the supply lines so they get stuff to the front line. We went to front line with a shovel, carrying our grease gun on our back, cleaning out the bar ditches and stuff, let the water drain off. We did that for 3 weeks, then we come back and went back into the combat, doing whatever to do. And the German people was good to us, the civilians. Something happened to our tank and we had to take it back to ordnance. And there was new tanks was coming out after the 15th of March. So they said, we don't want to give you an old tank like you got, we want to give you the new one. Said, you see that medium tank sitting there with a bulldozer blade on it? It's a Sherman tank. Take it to the front line. I don't remember the town we got up there, about 1 o'clock at night, and they didn't tighten up one nut on a wedge bolt real tight. They'd come out, and the track did like that, as far as we could go. So the sergeant and the corporal said, we're gonna find a place to sleep tonight. So they went down this little old lane, and there's a German, two couples in this house. we taken some 10-in-1 or 5-in-1 or 10-in-1 rations down there. Told the ladies we hadn't had anything to eat in a couple of days, so they sat down and fixed us a meal. And we had them to eat with us. That way we knew it wasn't poison. I don't know where they slept, but 2 of us slept downstairs and 2 of us slept upstairs. We told them it had been quite a while since we'd had a bath. So the next morning they rapped on the door and said, your bath water is warm and breakfast is on the table. So we sat down and eat with breakfast with them. Then we went out and taken our bath. Now we put our dirty clothes back on, but at least we washed our body. Then we went from there on to the front line, different places, and we had to cross the Rhine River, and we sat there quite a while waiting for them to get the pontoon bridge built. And we go out to this big old field. It's a wheat, a farmhouse right in the center of it. They thought the Germans would fly people in there and drop paratroopers in on us. And they didn't. We went in the building one night and looked around in this barn. There's rifles, ammunition, and all this stuff in there. Next night, 2 guys went in and they come out. They said, all that stuff is gone. We were scared to death. Thought maybe the German soldiers slipped in on us and we didn't know it. About that time, we didn't know what was in there. Something screamed in there. Now, when you're already scared and then something screams, you're really ready to go somewhere. So the 2 guys that went in there and found all that gone, they said, we're going to go in and look and see what that is. So they come out just dying laughing. They said, before that, they said, now when we come out of running, don't you shoot us, you shoot what's following us. And when they come out just dying laughing, they said, there's peacocks in there, that's what was hollering. So it scared us to death, but anyway, there wasn't nothing bad about it. We found the ammunition, all that stuff had dug a trench down there next to the woods, and that's where they'd put all that stuff in that trench. They got it out of their barn and stuff. Then we went across the Rhine River close to the Moggen Bridge. And when we went up there, they'd only let 2 tanks on that bridge at a time. There'd be one going off, one coming on, and one be in the middle, about the middle, because there's a MP there and he flashed a little old light saying when a tank passed him. We started down, that MP said, someone got to walk across this bridge. Well, I was the only idiot that would get out. Dark. I slid down with that driver and I said, you silly sucker, you, don't you run over me. I'm going to be walking right here in front of you. But he didn't, and we made it. But when we was there at Bonn, Germany, every 5 minutes, everything that had a pretty good sized gun on it shot a shell across the Rhine River till they could get the bridge built and everything. Then we went from there to different places up through Germany. We was at Hamburg, Germany, and different places. Then we got up there in April the 12th, 1945, and this last day the Germans strafed us with airplanes. The clouds was low, and they'd go above the clouds and they'd come down in and strafed us and then go right back up, and you couldn't see them then after they get up above the clouds. We captured 900 and some odd prisoners. Then we went in this little village, and I don't remember the name of the town, that morning, and then here the German soldiers got coming out of the mountains carrying their white flags. 45 German soldiers come up to the group where I was standing, and they said, what are y'all doing fighting? Your leader's dead. Now they could find out stuff like this before we could, and we was from the United States. And somebody guessed Eisenhower, or no, they guessed Patton first, no. Then they guessed Eisenhower, no. And then somebody guessed Roosevelt. Yeah, your leader's dead, what are you doing fighting? I said, we're fighting for the same thing today we was yesterday. Some of the guys said, well, we will lose a war now. I said, no. Roosevelt has got nothing to do with us over here. It's from Patton down, from Eisenhower down, is is where we get our gasoline, our ammunition, everything. I said, we'll never miss no gasoline. We will not miss no ammunition. We'll never know Roosevelt was dead. And we didn't. Everything went on just like it was before. And we captured there was 900 some odd prisoners, then we went to over 2,000. And they come in there with trucks, 2.5-ton trucks, hauling them off. I walked in front of this one truck. I looked up the guy standing in the right-hand corner of that bed, and there's an SS trooper. He looked down at me and just shook his head. But then we kept doing our thing. Then when the war's over, we wound up in, I think it's Hamburg, Germany. And we went through the town to a Y on the outside of the road. And that's where they stopped us. The next day, the German soldiers got coming in like ants going to a sugar sack. We stopped them and would put 4 abreast, and we'd put 100 to 150 in a column, and put a German officer out beside them and said, take them to the rear. Now where they went, we didn't know, but as many people's coming by, we'd had to walk down there and then walk back. They wound up, there wouldn't be no people there at the tanks. They'd have been there by themselves. So we just sent them on. They was hungry. They needed the groceries. Then we stayed there so long, and then they transferred me out of the 7th Armored Division into the 2nd Armored Division because I had this young guy. And we didn't know it at the time, but they was getting ready to invade Japan. We went to Berlin. And when they had the Big Four conference up there, and did garden and everything, and so they put the tanks out on the Autobahn, and then when Eisenhower come by, I'm not in that movie. When Patton come by, I'm not in that movie. But when Churchill and Montgomery come by and some young lady, I'm in that movie. Then when Truman and his daughter come by, I'm in that movie. We went out there for that stupid idiot Stalin, and he never did show up. We stayed there, and we was mad because we went out there right after breakfast. Didn't take no water with us, just going to be there a short time. Didn't have no dinner. About middle of the afternoon, we come home, back to the barracks. But the Russians made a bomb to look like a candy bar. And they'd give them to little children, and they'd bite down on it and blow their head off. The Russians was dirty people. And we was some town over there, and this lady, we was fixing to leave, and this lady come down the street with 2 little children, little boys. The tank commander looked and said, go up and get them a couple of candy bars. I went up and got 2 Hershey bars, and they was about that wide, and they was about that long. Held them right in front of them little old boys, and they would not take it. Their little old heads turned, see what their mother said. She just barely nodded her head, and the candy bar zipped out of my hand. Man, they left in a hurry. But we left Berlin, and went then to a little old town out of Frankfurt, Germany, at Gelehausen, Germany. While I was there, the company commander had V-mail already wrote out. We were supposed to sign it. And I looked at it and read it, and I told him, I said, it said on there, don't send me a Christmas package, I'll be home for Christmas. I said, I will not be home for Christmas, and I will not send anything like that to my folks. He said, they're going to get it if I have to sign your name to it. I said, well, if it's that way, just well sign it myself. And I did. But I knew I wasn't going to be home for Christmas, because I showed this gentleman right here where I was at Christmas Day in 1945. And so then he had us back together, and he said, now there's Cosmoline down there in the motor pool, vats to heat it in, rags. Y'all go down there and you Cosmoline the big gun, the machine guns, any tools, anything you don't have to touch to turn that tank in, you Cosmoline. Always slop that stuff on. I talked to a guy several years later, and he said, we drawed those tanks and had to clean them up, and he said, that's the biggest mess we ever seen in our life. But there wasn't nothing ruined. We saved everything. We turned everything that the 2nd Armored Division had, and we turned them in the last of July. of 45, the 1st of August of 45. And while we was turning them in, Truman dropped those bombs over there in Japan. So we got all the tanks turned in. We sat right there till to see what the Japanese were going to do. Then when they surrendered, well, they'd taken a battle. I had 3 battle stars, and they'd taken one away from me, where I was supposed to have 40 points before you come home. They couldn't send me to Japan, so they had to take a star away from me. I had too many points. They'd give me 35 points. But I never did get that star back. You can look there on that thing, and it shows you 3 stars, 2 stars on that pin that you pinned on you. But then that made no difference. Then they sent me to Ulm, Germany, to the 1st Armored Division, and there's where I was at. And they made me active platoon sergeant, and that aggravated some of them men that was older than what I was. This Jack, you know, what was it? I forget their name now. 2 older men than I was said, we know more about the Army than you do. They give me a hard time. So one day they come up and called me a kid, and that just aggravated the hound out of me. I looked at him, I said, you say you know more about the Army than I do? I got 4 months combat. You don't have none. You will never have none. And you're going to do what I tell you to do, because if you don't, I'll take you to First Sergeant so quick and make your head swim. They turned around and walked off and never said another word to me after that. They just thought they knew a bunch. But then we stayed there, and on January the 15th, 1946, I walked in the orderly room. I had to go every morning, see what the orders of the day was. I walked in the orderly room, the first sergeant looked at me and he said, how'd you like to go home 45 days? I said, how in the world can I do that? He said, volunteer for 6 more months overseas duty. You go home 45 days, come back, spend 6 months, and then you go back home. I said, where's that piece of paper? I signed it. He said, you better pack your clothes because you're leaving the 18th. I said, my clothes is always packed. I'm ready to go anytime. So I went and told my platoon what I did, and they said, you are crazy. You're going to go home and come back over here. I said, no, I'm going to go home. I'm bidding you guys adieu, and I'll never see you again. I will never come back. They said, you'll be sorry. I said, okay. So got on that ship on, I think it's on January the 25th to La Havre, France, and had a big old sign down on a building. They cleaned it up and painted it white. And every state that was in the United States, it told how far it was from there to your state. It said Texas was 5,280 miles. So, but that's, we got on that ship, we landed in, well, first place we went was Camp Kilmer, New Jersey. Fixed this great big old meal for it, big old steak and all the trimmings. We hadn't had one of them in over a year. So there's a case of ice cream behind of me. This sergeant, you know, the people up north back then didn't eat ice cream in the wintertime. He come by and he said, ice cream, who wants ice cream this time of year? And I said, feller, we've been overseas over a year. We have not seen no ice cream. We're wanting our ice cream. He just turned around and walked off and never said another word to me. Because we did, we wanted our ice cream. Then we got on the train, I don't know, it's either 3rd, or 4th, or 5th of February when I was up there. And the 9th day of February, I was down in San Antonio. It was a Saturday morning. We got there. So they inspected our clothes and got our furlough papers ready to go. And we was in this big auditorium. And they giving out the furlough papers. And this sergeant was up there and he said, Sarge, you got too much time overseas. We can't send you back over there. I know that makes you mad. And I said, you betcha. But I come home and got home and I never wrote my folks and told them I was coming home. On the 10th of February, I caught the bus in San Antonio and rode all night. Sunday morning about 8 o'clock, I was in a bus station in Bowie. So I called out the house and I said, y'all want to come and get me? They said, where are you at? And I said, I'm in the bus station here in town. Man, it wasn't long, they was up there after me. But I spent 13 months 10 days overseas in World War II. So I had too much time, they couldn't send me back. So the sergeant said, well, you get your 45 days, and then you go report to camp. Then it was Camp Hood. And the base had been closed, and we was opening it back up. And I had to take out a lot of details. This old stickery red flower with the little yellow flowers on them, them stickery weeds. The obstacle course and all that was full of that. So we had to go out there and cut all that out, pile it up, and I guess they burned it. I don't know what they did with it. Then I'd taken a bunch of men out to clean up the bathrooms in the officers' barracks. Officers were better than we was. Each one of them had their own bathroom. And the brass in there, they was tarred, discolored, and so many men and like one man having enough to go through it, and the guys was grappling. We're going to have to wait till somebody else has to clean that bathroom. I said, am I any better than y'all are? I said, I'll tell you one thing right now. I'm going to clean the bathroom. Then when each one of you are going to clean the bathroom, and then when we get through, we're going to inspect everybody's room, their bathrooms. You're going to inspect mine too. Boy, they cleaned them up. Then we got back, we was a little early time we got through, and I said, well, we can't go back to company right now because we're too early. I said, let's stop with the PX. And we did. Whatever they wanted, get some ice cream or Coke or whatever. I thought I was in trouble when that general come in. He didn't say nothing, he just spoke to me. And so then we left, went to the barracks. Them guys, they was going to, whenever taking them out, they was going to all leave, me by myself. When I got back to barracks and I dismissed them, they said, if you need anybody else to go on a detail, you call us. We'd like to go with you. So I had a good relationship with all the men. And I'd get on CQ when I was down there. And there was nobody in the company but about 4 men besides the company commander and the first sergeant. I'd get on CQ and have to stay a week at a time. And they'd always call me the brown noser because I was there so much. And so one night, I had to open up the supply room. The guys, new recruits that had just finished basic training, got to coming in from after they went home. Of course, you give them 2 blankets, 2 sheets, and a pillowcase. And I give that for a long time. I seen it was going to run out of blankets, so I give them 1. And I run out of blankets. So I told them, the supply sergeant next morning when he come in, I said, then the guys didn't have a blanket, and this was in last of March and the 1st of April, they need the blanket. I said, go over there to the people that's got 2 blankets and tell them to give you 1. We'll straighten it out. So they did. No one ever come back. So the next morning when the supply sergeant come in, I told him what I did. He said, you did the right thing. I'll get the blankets and straighten everything out. So I didn't hear nothing. No one whipped me, so I guess everything worked out right, And then they come to me and told me that they was going to send me to get a discharge. I could have turned it down, but did I? Nope. And what was funny, while I was down there in Camp Hood, I was taking a detail out. I looked across the street, and there's the old company commander that we had when we was in Gellerhausen, Germany. So I hollered at him, Lieutenant Surratt. He stopped, and I stopped the detail I had, and I went across the street, saluted him, and shook hands with him. He looked at me and said, did you volunteer? And I said, no, I'm not volunteering. He said, well, don't volunteer. You got 90 days to go out and come back and get your rank back. He said, come and see me, and I'll put you in there. I said, sir, I won't see you again. And I didn't. Because when I left there, I've been back to Camp Hood, but it's just visit when certain things happening down there. They decommissioned the 2nd Armored Division. I don't remember what year it was, but I was they'd contacted me, and I went down there and spent couple of days down there, and that's the only time I ever shook hands with a general. They, you know, because I was a civilian, and there's one guy, I was talking to him down there, and this young guy, and he said, talked to him about the equipment that they had down, and he said, you know, I've learned more today in the short time that I've talked to you about the equipment than all through basic training. Well, we had to work on them to keep them going. And this funny thing was I was sitting up there with a bunch of majors and bird colonels and stuff, and this half truck come back carrying a tank, the base commander. I said, now that right there is not nice. The exhaust pipe was hanging down about that far. I said, when we was in there, the exhaust pipe better be up there like it's supposed to. Now, that's not right. You just don't take care of your equipment. They looked at me like they thought I was crazy. But anyway, they wasn't taking care of the equipment like I thought they ought to. But I went down there and spent time with them and talked to them and then come home. I've been down there twice to Fort Hood. It's Fort Hood now. But I don't imagine I'll ever go back anymore, because they're taking my driver's license away from me, because they don't want me to drive anymore. And that's all right. But anyway, I did for our country what I was supposed to, and I was glad to do it. You hear preachers say that never was an atheist in the foxhole in combat. Well, they're wrong. I was not saved, and I never one time prayed to the good Lord to take care of me over there. Not one time. I had a feeling inside of me that he's going to take care of me. And the life I lived over there was so much different than the other guys. We'd have a bad night. You didn't know whether you're going to make it or not. The other guys prayed to the good Lord to save their life. And they promised they wouldn't do what they'd been doing. Now, why they came to me the next day, they'd come to me and tell me what they prayed to the good Lord to save their life. They promised they wouldn't do it. And I said, now you promised him, don't you do what you've been doing. But you know, did they remember it? No, 2 or 3 weeks. They'd forgot it and back doing the same thing they'd been doing before. But that's the way people are. And
Robert, let me ask you a couple of questions here.
Okay.
If we go back to when you grew up in Bowie. Dad was a farmer.
Yep.
You went in 1944.
Yep, in June of 1944, around the 22nd or 23rd of June.
Got a letter in the mail from the draft board?
Yes.
What'd your mom think about that?
She didn't say nothing.
Nothing at all?
No. Mom didn't say much. And this is something that's funny. Now, we hug our children, but do you know our folks never hugged us that I remember? When I left and went to the military, did Mom hug me? No. When I come home, did she hug me? No. I shook hands with her, but she didn't hug me. Of course, I was a farmhand, you know, worked there on the farm with Dad. Okay, what else?
You went to basic at Fort Knox?
Yeah, first where I was inducted was in Camp Walters in Mineral Wells, Texas.
Okay.
Then we went to Millsap and crawled on this freight train, or it wasn't a freight train, passenger train, and went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and we got there somewhere around the 14th of July, 1944.
When did you decide, or when did the Army decide that you were going to be a tanker?
Fort Knox, Kentucky is a place where they train people to be tankers.
Did you have any say in that,
No.
Robert?
You taken 8 weeks of infantry training and 8 weeks of armored training.
And you did that all at Fort Knox?
Yeah.
Okay.
We was there 16 weeks in basic training. And there's 2 hills there in Fort Knox, mountains, and they're steep. One of them was agony and the other one was misery. And when you got to the top of, and this one of them, when you come up that, and I don't remember which one it was. You come up, and I was only 18 years old, and didn't weigh that much. And the guys would start falling out, was carrying the M1 rifles, and when I'd get to the top of that hill, I'd have 2 rifles on this shoulder, 2 rifles on this shoulder. I was at the back of the platoon, and I'd be nearly at the front when we got to the top. And they was older than I was. They should have been stouter, because I was just 18 years old.
Had all that good farm experience, though.
Yeah.
You were in the Battle of the Bulge.
Yes, sir.
What kind of tank were you in? What was it like to be in that tank, space-wise, noise-wise?
It's right there.
M24?
No, it's the M5A1.
Okay. Is that
That's
a Sherman?
No, that's
No?
a small tank.
Small tank, okay.
Yeah.
How many people in the tank with you?
4.
Which would have been, what were their jobs?
The tank commander, the gunner, the driver, and assistant driver.
Okay. And the top guy was a sergeant, I guess?
Yeah.
Did you ever get to be that tank commander?
Yeah.
You got out as a sergeant, so
Yeah, I
you
got
worked
out
your
as
way up.
sergeant.
Okay.
I had because when the war's going on, I didn't drink. So I told them I was sober and I could shoot that gun and save their life. And I meant what I said, because I never did get drunk. Now, y'all may not believe that, but I'll take a polygraph test on it. And I always thought a man felt good, went out and got drunk, puked all over everything. The next day his head hurt, he's stupid. I never did have that headache.
When you talk about shooting the gun, Robert, it wasn't an open sight like you have on a rifle. Was
No.
this some telescopic thing
Yeah.
you looked?
Yeah,
What'd you see when you looked through that viewfinder?
whatever you're supposed to see. You know,
Was it magnified or?
well, it's just like a telescope on a rifle. They're magnified, you know,
Okay.
and this was too, because it had to go out there several hundred yards. So it had to be magnified so you could see.
How big was the gun?
That right there was a 37 millimeter, which wasn't the biggest thing in the world, but it had quite a bit of power. Then the M4 Sherman had a 75 on it. Same thing, the M4, that M24.
Okay.
And they had twin Cadillac engines in them. Both of them did. The M5A1 didn't have a clutch behind each engine, and when the engine, one of them died for some reason, you couldn't get it started, then the live engine had to pull a dead engine. And that sure did pull that engine down. Then the M24, they had draw clutches behind each engine. If one of them died and you couldn't get started, all you had to do was pull that clutch out. And when we was down here at Fort Hood, well, when they went and draw some new tanks, I was the one that had to go check them out. So we checked drawing some M24s, and I'd get up in the turret and I'd tell the driver, I said, start it. I wanted to hear the engines run, you know. I said, now pull it up. They'd pull it up. I said, stop. Then we'd check everything out, you know. So we pulled this, one of them started it. I said, pull it up. Well, one engine raced and the other didn't. I said, kill it. I got down in there and jerked on that clutch, and I couldn't get it in the clutch. I said, start it and kill it. He did, and I jerked on it real hard, or pushed on it, I forget which it was. But anyway, put it in gear. I said, now start it and pull up. And he did. Everything was fine. So the warrant officer come up behind the tank, and I stepped out of the turret and walked on the top of the engine down there and looking down at him. He said, if there's something wrong with the tank, push it back. I said, there's nothing wrong with it. I said, one clutch behind the engine wasn't engaged, and all I did was engage it. So it's all right now. He looked up at me and said, I didn't know it had clutches behind them engines. There was a warrant officer over the platoon, and I knew more about it than he did. just a rookie. But we drawed the tanks, you know, to get the company with their equipment.
If we go back to the Battle of the Bulge, 30 below zero,
Yep,
at least that's the number you heard.
yep,
You had 4 guys in a tank.
yeah.
That tank offer you any protection? Was it a little warmer in there than it was if you were out in a foxhole or something?
No, because
Was there any heat in the tank other than from the
no,
motor?
You didn't even get the heat off the motor. They designed them that whenever the engine was running, it pulled, for the radiator, it pulled that air through the holes in the turret in the tank around us to cool the radiator. So it was extra cold because we had that air sucking around us.
You said another thing, Robert, that got my attention here. We think about tanks, and you always have the picture of Patton and his pearl handle 45 and all that, but you took shovels and cleaned out bar ditches
Yeah,
so things would drain
yeah,
for 3 weeks.
yeah.
You live in a tank when you were doing that?
No,
Okay.
The tanks was back in town and they hauled us out there in trucks. But see, the supply lines going to the front line was falling apart because this water was all around the roads. It's, going under the road. And I seen something when we was doing that I'd never seen before, never thought of it. But they cut logs and they put them this way with the road. One right beside the other, just like your fingers there. Then they put crossways, the next one. Then they covered them up with some chipped rock and stuff. See, with them going crossways, then they wouldn't fall apart to where and you know what I was worried about when we was cleaning out the bar ditches, well, there was a bomb or something, you know, like a tank destroyer bomb and stuff. But I was afraid we'd get into some of that and we'd get killed or get our leg blowed off or something. But as far as I know, no one even got hurt. But we had to clean them out so the water could get away from the roads that was carrying the supplies to the front line.
Couple quick things here, Robert. You you stayed in a house, 2 German couples, 2 of you stayed
Yeah.
upstairs, 2 down. Lady came, knocked on the door, said breakfast is ready, your
Yeah.
bath water's warm. Did you speak a little German? Did they speak a little English?
Well, you could communicate.
Okay.
You'd speak the best you could their language, and they'd try to speak what they could, and we could understand each other, you know.
With the last name of Preuninger, you didn't speak any German.
No.
Okay.
My grandpa came from Germany around 1890. My dad could speak German, but they didn't teach us to speak any German.
Okay.
And when I got over in Germany, the first thing they told me, don't you tell these Germans your right name, because they'll make a special effort to kill you because you're on the wrong side. I said, no, I'm on the right side. But as far as I know, there's only 2 people over there that ever knew my right name. And a lot of German men asked me my name is either Smith or Jones. And when I was in Berlin, the big chain that held my dog tags around my neck broke. Well, you couldn't get nothing like that overseas. So I put them both on the little chain and put them in my pocket. Well, on them nice warm days, if you wasn't on guard duty, you'd go out there laying, you know, like you used to do, laying the grass. And them German women was walking by us like ants going to a sugar sack. And this one girl seen my dog tags laying there. She run and got them, and I didn't know what she was going to do, so I pulled my legs up here in my hand like that so that, you know, if she had a knife, she couldn't get to me too close. She grabbed the dog tags and went back out in the street and then throwed them back at me. Read the name on it. Then when we was in Ulm, Germany, the fellow that had the dry cleaner, see, we didn't have our clothes clean, and we wore the wool uniform all the time. They wanted us in the best dressed clothes we had because if we captured, we'd have a Class A uniform on. So when he opened up his place, well, we went to taking our clothes down there and having them cleaned, you know. and I gave him my right name so I could get my clothes. And there's a barber shop. The road come up and made a right, and right in where that road, if it went on, this barber shop was sitting right two barbers in it. That's where we got a hair. It was a haircut. It was off limits to the German people, but the soldiers got the haircut there because they could make more money off us than they could the German people. And they had their clippers was just like electric clippers, but they wasn't electric clippers. They had a jack shaft run right under the ceiling, and they had a little gearbox there, and had like a speedometer cable went to those clippers, and that's what run the clippers. And
Just a couple more, Robert. Captured SS trooper standing in the back of the truck, shook his head, looked at you and shook his head. How did you interpret that? What was he saying?
that I was a young kid, and he just couldn't figure out us capturing him. I was just 19 years old. That's the way I taken it.
Okay. Let's see here. That's probably about what I got. Robert, we certainly appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
We appreciate the time you spent during the war, sir. A lot of time overseas. Yeah. One more quickie we're going to take. Did you, you've got this banner with a swastika, Robert. How did you get that?
Went into a building, and they had a bunch of them in there, and we stole them. That's the only way you can put it.
We're going to just pull this behind you here a second.
But
You
But
stole it and you've kept it all these 70 years?
ever since 46,
46, that's 54, 64. That's close enough to 70.
but it's about 40, sometime 45 when we got it, you know.
You bet. Robert, thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We're done.